Hi there, this is Tyler, and I am here at GCOG Gauntlet Online Convention. It's October 2020, and we are here, and we're going to be playing a game that, I'll be honest, was something I play tested, and ever since then, it has stuck in my head, and I have wanted to play it again. And it is called Midnight at the Oasis, and it is written by Catherine Rahman, who is a brilliant designer. Her work is like art. It really is. Reading a Cat Rahman game is like literature, and much like she is, the games are elegant, just elegant in creation. This is a game that was written for the Gauntlet Codex Glamour, and Codex is Gauntlet's zine. Comes out every month, so it has new games in it. It has aids for you to throw into your campaign, and it's available for anybody who's a Patreon of Gauntlet. There is always neat things in it, and if you're interested in Gauntlet and you'd like to come play with us, we have 100 games or so at least a month. We have a forum. We have good communication. We also have, and you don't have to be a Patreon to get into games. We do have a little bit of a RSVP boost if you're a Patreon, but there is that opportunity to try and get in, and we have these cons running every 3 months or so, which lets people come in and give us a shot. So if you'd like to find us, we're at gauntlet-rpg.com. We also are we're on Facebook. You can find us there. We have a forum. You can find the Gauntlet forum. There's all sorts of places. You should come find us. And there's an ass load of APs that we've run out there too. Gonna say right off, I have a heavy Southern accent, and I've been running for the con for quite a few days here now. So I'm not only a little gravelly, but I'm sometimes hard to understand. Anybody who has a problem with my accent and don't understand what I'm saying, especially since we are coming from all over the world with this group of players we have today. So if you can't understand me, say, Tyler, what the hell did you just say? And I will try and enunciate a bit clearer so that you can understand me. Now, as I was saying, Midnight at the Oasis is a game from Codex Glamour, one of the best of the codexes. I have a personal thing to it. Everything in it is good, but it has my husband's game in it as well. He wrote Once Again We Return, which is a reimagining of Monster Hearts 2 for the Kieran Gillian's. Oh shucks! Now, Sabine, what's the name of the comic?
Yeah, that's. I was just thinking about what's the name of the comic. It's not Once Again We Return. It's something.
I know that's where it falls to my head.
The Wicked and the Divine.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Yes.
I have looked at Once Again We Return so many times that I can't remember. An amazing comic, despite my lapse of memory, and really absolutely beautiful. Jamie McKelvey does most of the art for it, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It's in there. There's a game by Tom McGrinery about Iggy Pop and David Bowie in Cold War Berlin. Wonderful edition. You should go see it. It's up on rpg.com. You can grab it. But this game by Cat Rahman is talking about a time and a culture that is it's lost. It's a snapshot of something that's no longer there, because this is a game about the transvestite, the cross-dressing community in New York in the late 80s, early 90s. And there's some things about it that surprised me when I first played. It was a look into a culture that, even though I'm that age, that was young me coming out, not in a big city, not like New York, in my little podunk city in South Carolina. This was not something that I was ever familiar with, and when I played it, it really touched me. It was a very significant moment game. And so I hope all of you enjoy watching. Now, I'm going to have our players introduce themselves. We've already gone over some safety tools always use safety tools at the table. Anybody at home, it makes your game better. I think you'll be happy. We have the X card. We have some lines and veils. We're aware of those. Once we get into play, I'm going to go over and look at our lines and veils again so we're well aware of them. But right now, I'd like for our players to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their character. So I'm going to start at my right on the screen. I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but it's Sabine for me.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sabine. I use semi-pronouns, and I am going to play Ruth. I'll just read the text because I haven't played her a lot, and that may give you more of an idea about who she is. And the tagline says, making up for lost time. You're in your late 30s and are a veteran of the armed services. You only started to come out publicly a few years ago. You live in the suburbs and drive into the city to visit the Oasis. Your presentation has improved a lot since your first attempts out of the door.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now I'm going to go down to you, David. Would you introduce you and your character?
Hi, yeah, certainly. My name's David. I use he, him pronouns, and I am going to be playing Lola. So you're in your early 20s and live in the suburbs. Back home, you sometimes go out to neighborhood bars that feel safe, where people know you there only as Lola. You were a goth when you were younger and sometimes still go to those clubs. You like to sing, and Dallas sometimes took you to piano bars. The Oasis gives you a chance to come to the city. Often you ride home on the early morning trains while still presenting female.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to come over to Kay. Introduce yourself and your character.
Hi, I'm Kay. I use she, her pronouns. And I'll be deviating a little tonight. I'll be playing Grant, who is an admirer. You're in your 40s and are a regular at the Oasis. You're charming and witty and are genuinely interested in the lives of the ladies here. You don't always go home with someone, but you do more often than any of the other admirers here.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And now for folks at home, we're going to kind of read through this game because, I think that it brings us into what we're doing a little better. And so that folks at home, you can kind of know what we're doing as well. So I'm going to start, and then folks are going to kind of take over for me to not only save my voice, but so you don't have to just hear mine. So everyone, if you'll bring up the Midnight at the Oasis game, and we're going to start there at the beginning. And it starts with the quote by Helen Boyd from My Husband Betty. The irony of the crossdresser is that he is both unknown and invisible in society and can't become known until he is visible. New York City in the 1990s was home to a club and party scene that only garnered strength despite the attempts of the Giuliani administration to crack down on them. But while the avant-garde collected at the electronica venues of the Tunnel, Limelight, and Mother, there were other quieter party nights catering to all kinds of subcultures. One of these is Grace's Oasis, a party night for cross-dressing men and their admirers, held in a bar restaurant on Saturday nights. Unlike some other venues that cater to trans people, such as the infamous and often closed Edelweiss, which was visited mostly by sex workers and their pickups, the Oasis bills itself as a more social gathering, a corner bar for trans people, a low-risk way to step out in the world for a while. And in a world that is barely on the internet, a place like this, like the Oasis, is a valuable hub. Kay, would you like to take over the next paragraph?
Sure. Most of the people who come to the Oasis every week are regulars, although there is always a contingent of out-of-town visitors and people venturing out of their homes for the first time. Almost all of them are not in the process of transitioning. They present male for the majority of the time and do not plan to transition or live full-time as a woman. Mixed among them are a small group of men who are attracted to cross-dressers, usually called admirers. Reaction to them varies, with some of the girls interested in hookups, some resolutely attracted only to women, and some willing to explore the experiences of being courted by a man, and many simply deride the admirers as being creepy and intrusive. This game takes place on a particular Saturday when several of the regulars are visited by their mutual friend Dallas, who moved out of the United States a year ago intending to transition. But when she arrives, she is presenting male, having detransitioned in the meantime, throwing everyone's carefully arranged self-image into disarray. Would you like me to
Excellent,
continue?
thank
or-
you. Let's have David. Why don't you take over a little bit?
Sure thing. A note on gender, transness, pronouns, and race. All of the characters in this game were assigned male at birth. When cross-dressed, they use female pronouns, have feminine names, and use words such as lady or girl to refer to themselves or others. While many of the characters can be presumed to have contemplated transition at several points in their life, at this point they are not transitioning. All of the characters in the game are or have been attracted to women. This does not preclude other attractions. The vast majority of cross-dressers who came to places like the Oasis identified as heterosexual as at least a starting point. Those who identified more strongly as gay tended to find their support in the gay community. No race is indicated for any character. The cross-dressing community was diverse, and people of any race or ethnicity could be encountered at the Oasis.
Go ahead and read the first paragraph of the next one, David, and then we'll skip a little bit down.
Yep, sure thing. There are 6 characters in this game. 2 characters, Grace and Dallas, are played by the same player, which is Tyler in this case. The other characters are Michelle, Ruth, Lola, Marianne, and Grant. All except Grant and Dallas arrive at the Oasis cross-dressed. Dallas must be chosen as a character, but any combination of the remaining characters should yield an entertaining game.
Alrighty. I'm going to have you, Sabine, if you would read the cross-dressers paragraph and the questions there. We've already done the introductions that are underneath it. And then if you would read These Are Your Truths, Live Them, which is on the right side of that page.
Okay. The cross-dressers. Michelle, Ruth, Lola, and Marianne all currently identify as cross-dressers. Their players must each fill in the blanks on the following 3 items. First, I'm in the closet to everyone except blank, my blank. You can write a few different answers for this. Some ideas are a brother, a sister, a good friend, current or former partner. If people know you only in your fun presentation, you're still in the closet to them. Second, I'm married to, dating, working up the nerve to ask out, blank, a woman I met, blank. If you would like, you can detail a past relationship as well. And third, blank makes me feel glamorous, while blank makes me feel like I can never pass. Some answers: hair, wigs, eyes, chin, neck, jewelry, dresses, shoes. And then I'm continuing with These Are Your Truths. Live Them. A short guide to playing a crossdresser. You were born in the closet, and you mostly stay there, except for those you trust. Most people, even in the 1990s, won't understand what you do, and you risk ostracization from your friends and family, and could even lose your job if you're outed. There are little to no protections for trans people in general. In 2002, the ACLU lost a wrongful termination lawsuit for an employee of Winn-Dixie who was fired for cross-dressing while not at work. You're attracted to women. You have been in, or wanted to be in, a relationship with a woman. This doesn't preclude other attractions, though facing those feelings is difficult for some people. You've thought about transitioning, but are not transitioning now. Ever since you knew it was possible, you've thought about living as a woman, but have decided that you don't want to. But that book seems hard to close. What you are not, a drag queen or excessively camp, quite the opposite. Most people strive for a look that is somewhere in the bounds of ordinary, if usually dressy, outfits that most women would wear. The central tension many crossdressers experienced was to be terribly liminal. How can you be authentic when the self others tell you is authentic feels like artifice, but it requires so much artifice to feel authentic?
Boy, that's a pretty phrase, isn't it? Boy, that cat. Now I'm going to. We have here the blurbs for the characters, but we've kind of already heard about them. So I'm going to introduce real quick Dallas and Grace, who I will be playing. And then when I finish that, if you'd like to be ready, Kay, I'm going to have you read the game and on your turn. So I am going to be playing Grace, and Grace and Dallas are played by the same player. Grace, you're in your 50s, a veteran of decades of parties and themed nights at bars. You remember fondly the Studio 54 days and the sexually amorphous 1970s, which may Explain why there's so much disco on your playlists. You run the sound tables and serve as hostess and door greeter. Pick one of the girls and say why she is your favorite. And I'm going to do that once we get into play, just after I kind of see what all of our questions that we're going to go through are answered. Then I'll be playing Dallas, who won't show up until our Act 2. Dallas, you're in your late 30s and are the classic late transitioner, or so you thought. A year ago, you left the city for some far-off location, planning to transition to being a woman. You were taking hormones and making surgery plans, but now you're back, apparently living only as a man, and have come by the Oasis to see your old friends. When you were still a regular at the Oasis, you were known for your escapades, all-night club crawls, singing sessions at the piano bars, running your own theme parties at other locations. All the regulars present tonight accompanied you on several times on one of your manic romps. Here's the tension of playing Dallas. The detransition is temporary and transitory. You will eventually return to expressing your transness, either by resuming transition, cross-dressing, or some other middle ground. But while you suspect this, and your friends will certainly do so, you do not know for sure this is your future. To what degree you do comprehend it, and how much you cling to the idea of your transition is up to the player. The experience of permanent transition is quite complicated and not really captured in the experience of the character of Dallas, nor is it meant to. And we'll be getting to some things about Dallas, and we'll have some questions. But let's move to the game. Kay, would you mind reading the game and on your turn?
Of course. The game. After the questions have been asked and answered, the game can start. There are 2 acts in the game, plus an epilogue. The game is comfortably playable in a single session of 2 to 4 hours. Each player will need a token. At the start of the game, everyone except Dallas's player puts their token on a location on the map. Multiple tokens may be at the same location. Scroll. On your turn. The character who is Grace's favorite goes first. After her turn, play proceeds around the table to the left. On your turn, you must play out a scene that includes your character, and you may move your token to any other location. You can move either before or after playing out your scene. You must include everyone who shares a location with you in your scene, except Grace, who can be included or excluded as desired. Either before or after you have moved, you may invite one character to join you. It's up to their player if they do. If they accept the invitation, they move their token to your current location. These rules simulate the experience of navigating a crowded social space. Sometimes you may want to go somewhere but not share the space with another character, or desperately want someone to join you for some one-on-one time. Grace is an exception to these rules. She does not have her own token and never moves. Grace can always be found either at the bar or on the dance floor, and a character can always include her in her scenes if she is at either of these locations. Once everyone else has had a turn, Dallas's player may decide to make her entrance at any time on someone else's turn by placing her token on the map. This marks the end of Act 1 and the start of Act 2. Dallas is immediately played out a scene exactly like the other characters. She takes her turns after the player during whose turn she made her entrance. Once Dallas has had a scene with each of the other characters, she may end the act by declaring that Dallas is leaving the Oasis. The game then moves to the epilogue.
Thank you. And I'm going to interrupt our rules here just to say a little something of how we're going to play. We're not going to be using tokens per se, though we have our map up there. And we also have in our character keeper in NPCs and places those same descriptions from the map. What I think we're going to do is when you move to a location on your character keeper in the PCs, towards the bottom you will see other and gear and notes. Just write in where you go, and then when you move, just mark it out and go to the next line and write in where you go. This way we can kind of keep up where each person is as things circulate, rather than moving tokens. Now, David, I know it's a long haul, but do you think you could get through the whole map reading that section?
Yeah, sure thing.
All right, if you would, please.
Okay, so the map. A map of Grace's Oasis, by day a restaurant/bar, is on the next page. There are several locations with a scene prompt for each. When your token is on a location, you can make a scene using the prompts. You must include any character whose token is already at that location in your scene, and only those characters. If you like, you can do a flashback to another time and location. The front door only allows you to have a flashback scene, while Check Your Makeup only allows a monologue. Some locations have multiple prompts. Generally, you can use either or both prompts when you set your scene. If you don't have the map, you can write down the names and prompts on the next blah, blah, blah. The front door, flashbacks only. These scenes are about what you bring with you and what you leave behind. A scene here must be a flashback. The basement, what you cover up and what you cannot conceal. The basement includes a changing area with a vanity for people who cannot dress up before leaving home. The bar, what you desire and who provides it. This is one of the 2 locations where Grace can always be found. Check Your Makeup, monologues only, a reflective monologue. The Oasis provides a ladies' and a men's bathroom, although practically they are unisex. A character may only have a monologue in this location. The dance floor, share a joy or confront a fear. This is one of the locations where Grace can always be found. Many of the crossdressers were socialized as males growing up and thus don't believe they can dance or never learned and find it awkward. Some too find it uncomfortable to dance with a man or fear what they might feel if they did. Some of the patrons, however, enjoy dancing to Grace's mix of disco and current pop. A corner table, a shared confidence, a difficult truth. The corner tables are a little quieter and more secluded than the area around the bar and are often used for conversations between friends or make-out sessions. There are no locations outside the Oasis. This is intentional, as the Oasis is a hermetic location, a larger closet, or more generously, a safe space. Flashbacks and monologues can take place outside the Oasis, of course.
All right, and we'll talk about what epilogues are once we get to the end of Act 2. And during the course of the game, I will try to put up a screen share so folks can see the map at home, but all of our players have the map available to them. Now, I'm going to ask, are there any questions now that we've gone through the rules that we might like answered? Or do we feel kind of comfortable what it's doing? Okay. I will say this is a highly improv game. We're going to be making it up as we go along. So feel, kind of do that yes and if you can, but also be true to that character. Feel your character and, kind of go along with what the character's telling you. Now, we're going to go and we're going to answer some questions about each of our character. So we're going to start with our history questions. And we're going to go through and have everyone do those first. And then we're going to come back and we're going to have another little set of questions as well. So first, and we're going to go, I think, in character keeper order, I believe, is our best bet. So that will be, and if I were more tech savvy, I would get rid of the extra one. So if somebody feels like doing that, they can certainly do it. But it will be in order: Lola, Ruth, and Grant. So I'm going to start with you, Lola, though you poor thing just went through such a long discussion. Why don't we hear your history?
Sure thing. So I'm in the closet to everyone except Daphne, my mother. So yeah, I think that my mother. I think Lola still lives with her mother out in the suburbs, and yeah, she is probably aware. Probably supportive is stretching it a little bit too far, but is certainly understanding, shall we say, of Lola's situation. I'm dating Eleanor, a woman I met at work. I think this hasn't been going on for very long and isn't very serious, but they've sort of been out on a few dates. I think they work at a sort of just a sort of general office type thing. I think Lola has a fairly junior role there, just as a sort of administrative assistant type role, and knows Eleanor from the job, and singing and dancing make me feel glamorous. It's something that that Lola's always enjoyed. They've got a decent voice, and they're quite a talented dancer in that amateur sense, rather than being formally trained. But their stubble makes me feel like I can never pass, and I think they've got that sort of combination of having quite dark hair, but very pale skin, so they have that kind of permanent 5 o'clock shadow sort of thing. So they have to wear quite heavy makeup to kind of conceal that, which is a bit of a source of discomfort for them.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, David. I love how these questions show get us into our characters. That was very nice. Ruth, why don't you go through your questions?
Yes, I am here. I am answering. I am in the closet to everyone except Vernon, my army comrade. I've joined the service pretty young, and we've been through a bit of stuff, right? And I've told him when we were both a bit inebriated, I guess, and he doesn't really understand, but he's not like, oh, you shouldn't do this, and oh, this is not who you are. He doesn't really understand what I'm going through, but he's supportive nonetheless, because we're kind of like brothers and have saved each other's life, I imagine, or something like that, or had each other's back for a long time. Yeah, and I'm married with 2 kids to Linda, my childhood sweetheart. We were at school together, we went to the dances together, and we married like everybody expected. And then I shipped out to service, or maybe I shipped out to service and then married her, who knows? I mean, I do, but it's not important anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I love her, of course. She's my wife, but she doesn't know, and she wouldn't understand. And I feel that wigs and shoes make me feel very glamorous. I mean, I can't really walk on these heels, right? I've learned that I like that. That feeling that you actually have this elegance to your step. But I feel that my shoulders make me feel like I can never pass. I'm a pretty muscular person, and finding the right dress that doesn't make my silhouette look like, like a roughneck, that's hard, impossible almost.
Very, very nice. Boy, that's a heck of a background. That's really poignant, beautiful. Thank you very, very much, Sabine. Kay, you have a slightly different set of questions.
Yes. Yeah, mine are a little blank right now, so I'm going to do some checking in first, just because I want to check some people's comfort zones before I give them as my answers. So, how would, David, you feel if Lola and Grant had a simmering mutual attraction?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Right. And then, Sabine, how would you feel if Ruth and Grant had a mutual interest in shoes?
Oh, I would totally love that.
All right. And then last but not least, blank is the most attractive lady here. Say why she is. I think in Grant's eyes, the most attractive lady here is probably Grace.
What I would ask, what is it that attracts him to her?
I think it is both her sort of elegance and ownership, but it's also who she is as a person. The fact that she has made this location and provided such a space for these girls and these women. And I think that is something that, given the mini scope history I've made it for Grant in my mind, is something that touches him very deeply.
Lovely. Oh, hey, I like that, and thank you to the other players and for you for checking in. That's very responsible role play. Thank you very much. So we're going to now kind of move to a set of questions that each player is now going to ask at least one question below. Every character except Grace needs to have asked at least one question and answered at least one question. So we can look at least one. There might be, if you think there needs to be two, we can do that. We don't want to take, we don't need to ask them all, I think is the best bet. And I feel like that this, the way the game is stated, this also includes Dallas, because Grace was exempted, but Dallas was not. So I think I'm going to ask the first question. It's, let's see. I'm going to ask Ruth. Why have you never told Lola that you find them attractive?
Yeah. You know what? I don't know how to tell people that I find them attractive. I've married my childhood sweetheart. There was never any question about this. I don't know how to flirt or anything. I would love to be able to do this, but nothing in my life has prepared me to go up to a person and tell them, hey, you're attractive. I've started a lot around that. So maybe Lola has some idea, but yeah, I've never. Well, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for your answer. Let's move over. We'll let you be the last one to go since you got stuck with the first answer. So I'll come around to my other side. Grant, why don't you ask one?
Okay. I think I'm going to ask. So do we ask it just out of curiosity to a specific person, or do we just put this question out into the ether?
You're asking to a person, and
Okay.
that can, ask each player now asks at least one of these questions below. Each needs to have asked at least one question and answered at least one question. I suppose you could toss it out there and see if someone wants to pick it up.
Yeah, I was going to say a couple of them are phrased.
Yeah,
as
I was just
open
reading some.
questions rather than directed ones, aren't they? It's
right.
Yeah, I was
and Dallas is also included in this. But so yeah, you could toss them up, or you could, you could say, hey, would you be interested in answering this one if you have one that you're really kind of pointed at?
Yeah, because I think number 9 is interesting, but it's one of those more open ones, which is, who looked to Dallas as a role model, and what part of her life did you try to imitate?
Yeah, I think that's I definitely like the one for Lola, because I think that the exuberance, I guess that Dallas lives her life with is something that Lola found inspiring, because obviously she's cool, certainly one of the younger girls here, and so she would have been very young and impressionable when she first got to know Dallas, I think. And sorry, I've lost the second half of that question. And I think that's kind of that confidence is something that Lola has tried to emulate in her own life.
thank you very much. As I may have mentioned, I live in South Carolina, and being in South Carolina, rednecks have decided to shoot guns this evening, and my poor puppy does not like guns, does she?
Oh,
No.
poor baby.
But she is not going to be able to sit here in my lap like this. So
Well,
you can sit underneath my feet. I'll protect you.
oh, baby.
There you go. All right. Thank you very much, David. That was an excellent answer. So I believe it goes to you to ask a question.
Sure. I'm going to ask. I guess this one to Dallas, which is what breaks your heart that you've never done while presenting female.
Oh, good question. I think it breaks my heart. It certainly did break my heart at the time, and it still sticks with me that I never showed my grandmother, who was such an inspiration to me, her strength and her style. She had been a flapper in the 20s and was just this libertine light. And I think she would have understood. I think she would have accepted. But I was never brave enough to see before she passed.
That's nice. That's nice. I like it.
All right. Sabine, your turn to ask a question.
I would like to ask the question, which one of the regulars have you met when one or both of you were presenting male? But I think I would like to ask this to Grant because he hasn't had a question yet, but I think that would be better directed at Lola, actually.
Well, we'll keep going around, yeah. So what you think, Lola? That's interesting. So first, that's a really deep question. So Lola, were you both presenting male?
Yeah. So I'm wondering. Sorry, I'm just going to. Yeah, actually, I'm wondering if maybe to kind of include Grant in this one. I'm wondering if maybe I have met Grant while I was presenting as male, not but possibly just like in passing, and possibly didn't actually like introduce myself. But I wonder if maybe it's sort of maybe we work in the same office building or something like that, and just one day one day we happen to sort of be in the elevator at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's totally plausible. I think Grant works in a sort of business level job, probably at a maybe at a much higher level than where Lola is in their day life. And there's a good instance that they probably never really saw each other because they probably arrived at different hours, worked on very different floors, and just this one happenstance where they were, in an elevator, and maybe Lola was either thinking of something and missed their stop and stayed on too long, or had to deliver something for someone else higher up.
Yeah.
And maybe I like the idea that Lola was like humming the whatever song was playing in this elevator, and Grant recognized their voice.
Yeah.
From all the singing they do at the Oasis, and sort of had this moment of shock that it was someone so close. But I think since then they had sort of spent a bit more time with Lola at the Oasis, since knowing that. And whether Lola recognizes it or not, they've spent some more time on the lower floors.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Excellent. So we've now all had, I believe, everyone ask and answer a question. Do we feel like, and just look over the questions, and we can, if you have one that really calls to you, because I have one more that it's calling to me. So if there's one that's really calling to you, after I ask mine, I'll kind of go around it. Do you have one more? But this, just because of your background, Ruth, I'm really interested to know, why is it so important that your family never find out about your trips to the Oasis?
I mean, I've got a wife and 2 kids, and I'm in the armed services. I would lose my job. I would lose my wife. I would lose my kids if this came out. I mean, I'm pretty sure that in the 90s you couldn't be transgender.
No,
and
you definitely could not. And if we're talking early 90s, no. Don't ask, don't tell is either not there yet or barely there yet. So I had an idea where you would go, but I wanted us to see it on the table because so this is a pressure that Ruth feels really deep.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ruth likes, not much likes, but this is the life Ruth lives, and losing it would mean losing everything, becoming unmoored from everything. And your late 30s doing that, yeah, maybe, but no, not like that.
Beautiful, thank you. Kay, Grant, do you have one more, or are you good?
So sort of weirdly, I'd like someone to ask me a certain question, is that like too on the nose?
Yeah, you can throw it out there. What the hell?
Yeah, there's like 2 or so questions that I was sort of looking at, and I was like, I think these would be interesting for Grant to answer, which is 11 or 12.
All right, well, so that we can, why don't we have, if you want to, David, go ahead, just ask it out. But if you have a question of your own to ask, or, whoever wants to ask the question, feel free to do that as well. But David, why don't you go ahead and just ask that out?
Yeah, no, certainly. I think, I think actually I'm going to go for number 12. What favor did you do Dallas that she still owes you for?
So Grant paid for Dallas to be able to go overseas and to live there and put down the money for like that first month's or few's rent, set up a contact, the access to like, this is the car you're going to pay, like the whole kit and caboodle. Grant sort of footed that bill.
I love it. That's very good. And so you will be the only one who is privy to an answer on mine. Most of my questions are supposed to be kind of kept away, but you will know that I went to Berlin to begin my transition. And that first month, you probably would have gotten letters back from me and then just nothing.
Yeah. I think it was very frightful for Grant.
Did you keep that to yourself or did you tell anyone? I
think Grant kept it to himself. I think Excellent. Grant didn't want to worry anyone else and had perhaps had some of their own, they might have even had a PI like in Berlin looking for Dallas. After like 4, like depending on how many months, there were several months where there was no contact and they were very concerned. Okay. That probably turned up frivolous.
Yeah, I think so. Especially since I'm not sure that Grant really knew Dallas's boy name.
Yeah, I don't think Grant knew Dallas's boy name.
All right. So, David, is there a question you'd like to ask, or you think you're good? Feel free to ask.
No, I think I'm good with. I think I've got a grasp on sort of who everyone is. Yeah, no, I think I'm good. Good with where I am.
Sabine, you got one more or something in there you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I had the one question I would like to ask someone, and I think we've pretty much gotten the answer from Grant already, so I'll ask. What's the name, Lola? Why does seeing Dallas like this fills you with dismay?
I think it's because Lola saw Dallas as such a role model, and there's that kind of feeling that if kind of Dallas has sort of turned her back on this, then maybe maybe there isn't sort of a future for Lola as well.
I like that. That's very, very good. All right. So I think we feel good about our questions. That's given us a nice round, and I think it's filled in a lot of what we are, all these characters are. Now, what will happen next is going to be we're going to hop into the game, and that's going to be starting with who is Grace's favorite. And I'm going to be honest, as I thought, I personally love all of you, and I think Grace at least likes all of you. But I'm going to go with Lola because I think there's something about kind of her free spirit, and she likes to see her dance and hear her sing. There's something young that reminds her of her days when she was, out there young and full of life herself. Now, we're going to, just so you, David, can have a chance to think and everybody else can look over the map and have a think, we're going to take our break here. And that'll give us a few minutes to kind of digest what we've learned and get ready to go forward. So let's take 10 minutes. Let's come back at 25 to the hour, and we'll get started. Well, folks at home, I hope I attempted to share my screen with you. I don't know if it was successful. I'll find out on the when I
It
review it.
was.
Was it?
It was. I saw it. It was successful.
Good. So for folks at home, that's the map for the Oasis. As you can see, pretty cool looking. We'll wait a moment for everybody to get back, and then we're going to start. Everybody feeling good? You two in good shape?
Very excited.
Cool. Boy, and I'm going to go and review before we get going our lines and veils again. Dead air. Those folks at home I know are loving it.
So Linus will not be in the game, and Veil is like it can be like mentioned but will not occur.
Right. It's we know it exists, or it can be referenced to, but it's a fade to black, or it's off focus, and not brought in as a focus. That way, we, my consistent example is like sexual content. It's kind of the Buffy rule of you see it coming along, you know what's gonna happen, but the camera pans on across, or for Buffy, it's pan to the moon. Usually, it just pans up, and we see the moon through the window or whatever. But yeah, we won't have sexy times on actual camera.
Yeah, no.
Well, we'll give David a second more, and then we're going to hop back in.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to turn my camera back on. I was just flicking through the...
All right, I'm going to go over real quick before we get into play our lines and veils again, just so we're all mindful of them. PC betrayal as a veil. Racism as a veil. Sexual content as a veil. And suicide as a veil, as in we will know these things can exist. They can be in the background of a story, but we're not going to focus. That's not going to be something we put into play, or it'll be something that we fade to black with. Then for lines, we have sexual assault, we have slavery, and we have torture, which will not be in the game at all. I don't see a reason that should come into the game at all. But we will just not have those things as part of our story. So, David, it's on you, my friend. Where is Lola going to be first? Yeah, go ahead. What we'll do is I'll have you place your token, then I'll ask Ruth, then I'll ask Grant, and then we'll go to you to get your choice then to move somewhere or enact wherever you're at.
Yeah, sure thing. So I think I'm going to... start off at the bar. I think that's feels like a good opening location.
Okay, Ruth, where are you going to place your token to start with?
Yeah, I am going to place my token on the basement.
Excellent. And Grant, where is your token going to be placed?
I think Grant is also at the bar.
Okay. And I think the easiest way for us to keep up with this is down where it says other or gears and notes, but just a spot down there. Just write your location currently. Yeah, I think gears and notes might be our best bet. And then you can either, when you move, you can either put a line through it, or you can just erase it, put your new spot in it, or whatever. So, David, for your turn, you get the choice to move and encounter the space, do whatever you want in the space, or do whatever you want to do in the space, and then move. So, what is Lola going to be doing? You're muted, my love.
I was overzealous with my muting there. So yeah, no, I'm going to. I am going to be. I'm going to stay at the bar for this this scene, and yeah. So I think Lola Lola sort of heads in. She's already dressed, and I think she's wearing a kind of a retro sort of like 60s, not like a super short, like not like a proper full on go-go dress, but that sort of quite, you know, sort of tight, slim sort of dress. In fact, probably actually got like the sort of little high-heeled ankle boots. She's got a long dark wig on with like a with like sort of the Alice band in it, and yeah, I think she takes a seat at the bar. You know, says hi to Grace, and yeah,
Hi,
I think
sweetie, get you a drink.
Yes, please. I'll have the usual, which I think is probably just like a sort of white wine of some variety.
All right, sure thing, hon. Good to see you tonight.
Yes, it should be good fun. I've been looking forward to it.
And she'll bring your drink over and set it down for you. And you can look down bar. There, other than Ruth and Grant, you don't see Ruth at the moment, but there are some people here. There's probably a couple of dozen around the whole bar itself, but you can see Grant just down the bar from you. And so frame out your scene, my friend.
Yeah. So I think Lola will kind of raise her glass in greeting to Grant and say, "Evening, Grant. I hope you're I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you again."
Yeah, it's delightful to see you again, Lola. In fact, I was hoping to see you, and he like reaches into his lap and he draws out this bouquet of flowers. And it's like not like a rather large one, but like maybe like 4 or 5 stems. And they're these sort of effervescently petal pink roses. And he sort of gets up from his other position to take a seat closer to Lola as he places the flowers by them. And you look utterly lovely tonight. Your hair is just framing your face, and your cheeks look so gentle.
Oh, thank you. You're so you're too kind, Grant. You're looking great as ever.
Yeah, I imagine he's dashingly dressed in a sports coat. His curls sort of coiffed blonde hair, looking very traditionally masculine. As he sort of nods to Grace, if I may, if you know, Lola's drinks on myself.
Well, certainly, Grant. And she'll kind of smile at you, Lola. Whenever, if you'd like, I can put those in some water for you till you leave.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you, Grace.
Yeah.
She brings over a little vase for you to put them in. She'll put them right, kind of just directly across from you, sitting on the back behind the bar.
Yes. How are you doing this evening? I know you've just walked in, but
Well, A lot better now, thank you. No one's ever bought me flowers before.
Oh, well, we'll have to continue to rectify that. What other things have people failed in their doings to buy you?
Well, it's just, well, you know how it is. It's nice to be treated from time to time, I suppose.
I think he sort of like Grant notices how you're sort of trailing off, and is Lola's hand on the bar?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's got kind of I think it's got sort of one hand sort of resting on the bar and sort of the other around her drink.
Yeah, I think he like puts his hand over her hand for a moment and just sort of gently squeezes it a little and says, "You're a beautiful lady, Lola, and you deserve to be treated as such," before sort of, pulling it away. And again, this like affable smile on his face, it crinkles against his eyes.
Thank you. It's good of you to say. And it's always nice to spend time with you here.
Yes, it's always a delight to be in your presence. You're just so, and like he sort of like sighs in this like wistful way, like he's much too young for just, even if he is 40, to be among those still enjoying the fervency of youth.
I suppose so. I've I know a lot of the other girls here are a little older, and she kind of glances around, but it's still nice to be out here with everyone.
Yeah, it's a wonderful location. It's a safe place.
Yeah, it's. I sometimes go out to the odd place at home, but it's nice to just not have to worry too much about what people think.
Yes, and that's not. And he like sort of pointedly looks, and that's not something you should worry about too much. Be happy, Lola.
I am, I think.
Well, let's turn think into know.
Does that seem like a moment for sin?
I think so.
So, David, do you think Lola is going to, you have the option to move away from here? Or do you wish to stay at the bar until your next round?
I think I'm actually going to move to the dance floor, and I think maybe over the course of this conversation, Lola's finished her drink, and I think she gets up and heads to the dance floor. I don't think I'm not going to invite anyone to join me at this time. I think I'm just going to head out there.
All right, and as you stand up and head over there, you can see Grace kind of give a smile watching you, and then she looks over towards you, Grant, and the flowers are pretty.
Yes, just like she is. All the ladies here deserve flowers.
I'd really hate it if she got her heart broken.
And I think his brow is sort of knit together a little. That's never my intention. And because I think this is not necessarily, maybe this is the first time Lola has seen it, but this is certainly not the first time that Grant has brought flowers to people.
I bet not. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we'll end with her giving you that look and your response. Mm-hmm. And we move to the left. And it's kind of the same in both Character Keeper and on screen, though I feel sad, Sabine, because you haven't been in this scene, but let's do keep to kind of our rotation. So it goes to you, Grant.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Looking at this lovely map of ours. I think Grant. Let's see. The only place you could technically monologue. I think Grant stays at the bar.
Okay.
I think maybe he edges a seat over so he has a view of the dance floor, but he does not leave the bar yet. I think he's got a sort of a rum and coke that he's been nursing, top shelf, and he's watching Lola dance, and he sort of looks over at Grace and he says, it's a bit whispered, but she's close enough. You know it's never my intention to hurt them.
It doesn't really matter your intention as much as the result now, does it, Grant?
No, but I want them to feel good. I want them to be happy, to get the moments they deserve to have. You know, no one ever brought Lola flowers before.
A lot of the ladies can understand what you're doing for them, Grant. Lola may not be like that. Be honest with her and don't just dally. If that's your intent, then she may feel very pretty getting flowers today, but she's going to feel very different when she sees someone else getting flowers next week.
Lola's just got that spark, you know?
I do know.
I wonder, what if the other flowers became different? Do you think that would still... Well, what if while Lola got my roses, other young ladies maybe got daisies?
I can't answer for her, but I can tell you this. I think that she will care more deeply than some, and I've seen some who've been really hurt, Grant. Not just by you. You're not the only gentleman caller our ladies get.
And there's a sort of glaze of sadness over his eyes when Grace mentions that, you know, that there are these women and that they've been hurt by his actions and or the actions of others here.
Just be sweet and be honest, Grant. Nobody else would expect anything more.
Right. I just see so much of them in Lola. And I think there's a them that ever since Grant has gotten here, they've mentioned, but they've perhaps only ever... I think they've only ever told Dallas who that them is. Maybe
Gotcha.
Grace has heard mutterings. You know, some things, there's like certain details that probably stuck out, like you know, that this them is from when Grant was very young. But they don't know the name of who them is.
And Grace will kind of nod at that, but she's giving you a really appraising look as she goes, Lola's young and still trying to find herself. Don't put the weight of someone else on her as well.
I have no desire to put weight there. If anything, I'd love to be Lola's Atlas.
Pretty words, pretty face, pretty suit. And she'll kind of turn to start walking away.
Yeah, and I think he, turns his chair a little and takes another sip of his drink and watches Lola dance in the light.
And I think that's probably our scene. Do you wish to move away from here, or are you going to stay at the bar?
I think. I think Grant will stay at the bar for right now, just sort of watching.
Okay. I will remind as I come to you, Ruth, that any place can be a flashback if you want, and it can be a monologue. Some of them have to be a monologue or a flashback. But Ruth, you're in the basement, which now that we're getting to, let's see, where you cover up and what you cannot conceal. And so you're going to be describing out what's going on here. But I think I'll say that just as a little scene dressing to start, that Grace always makes sure that there are not small, but no more than like this. There I go. This size of a Tupperware container, so people can put their clothes into it and close it. And that there's always fresh tape on the top, and there's a pen on Sharpie nearby so they can write their names on it. And you're aware that anybody that would screw with your stuff would draw down Grace's wrath, and there's no one who would want that. So, what do we see, Ruth? Do you wish to stay there or move?
I'm staying there. Can I have a flashback scene here?
Absolutely.
And can I ask? And can I invite another player character into that flashback scene?
Yes, I think possible? You can do. Yes, since it's a flashback. Yes, you can only invite people to your room if it's after a move. But I absolutely think you could bring a flashback in.
Okay. Because I would like to have Ruth remembering one of the earlier times when she was very new to the whole thing, and maybe Grant was there and giving her a few tips about the whole dressing
I would love to.
up stuff, because I imagine Grant has been a fixture here. Cool. So yeah, Ruth is looking in the mirror, and you see the whole thing goes a little foggy, and then we're back here maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and Ruth is looking, and Ruth has already dressed up as a woman, but it is not very convincing. I mean, there is a wig, but it's not combed out or anything, and the makeup is kind of well, she's trying to put on makeup, but she's kind of confused a little, like what to do, actually. I mean, the basic functions are clear, but she's kind of like, oh gosh, what am I doing here? But she looks very determined.
And I think this is not the first time this has occurred. I think maybe there was an instance or two when you first stepped out where some of the more cattier ladies were not the kindest about how femme you looked. And
yeah,
I think Grant sort of knows that this is a situation, and he doesn't traverse the basement too much, but when he saw you come in and then head there, he actually headed down and walked over to a locker that's usually sort of empty, and he unopens it and he pulls out this box, and it's an expensive looking box. And he sort of strides over to you and he says, Ruth, I have something that I think will really set this look up right for you with just some small touches. Would it be all right if I assisted you?
Yes, I imagine, yes. And she's looking at you, and you can see that there are worrying emotions here. There's kind of vulnerability, like, do I trust this person? Also kind of a fighty instinct, almost like, does this person want to hurt me, and do I have to maybe do something to stop them?
Yeah, and I think there's this genuine soft smile on Grant's face because he knows very well the world cannot be kind, especially to ladies. And he opens this box, and if you look at it, maybe I think it's the start of something because it's a Manolo Blanc box.
Ooh.
And he pulls out these shoes that have this velveteen blue and just the slightest heel, a baby starter heel, a kitten heel, with a glittering adornment on the front. And he's, sort of watched the few color schemes that you tend to suit yourself, and they didn't necessarily maybe fit your skin tone or your hair color, and so he brings these out, and they pop against your features, and they add to some of the outfits I think that you tended to wear that were a bit more conservative, but they give that flair and that openness. And he says, now we can start with these. They should be your size. I admit I may have peeked into your locker. But Grace knew I asked.
Okay.
And he sort of gets down on a knee, very almost Cinderella Prince Charming-esque, as he presents the first of these shoes for you to slide your foot in.
Yeah, and as Ruth sees these shoes, there is kind of this happy kind of glow to her eyes, like she can't really believe that this is for her, but also that she really, really wants that these are, and she says, "Oh my, these are amazing. I've never seen shoes that are so lovely. Do you think they fit?"
Yes, like I said, I am, and he sort of sheepishly rubs the back of his neck. I checked with again, I had Grace's permission. She knew where I was going with this, and he seems a little bit nervous. I think this is maybe one of the more extravagant things he's done. But they joke and say the shirt makes a man, but the shoe makes a woman, and a lovely woman such as yourself deserves an appropriate in turn. And
Wow.
Yeah, he helps adjust and slide it in, and they fit, perfectly. Again, they're new shoes, so they may need a little bit of wiggling around in there. And then he sort of, does the other foot, and he'd stand up, and he said, "Now I'm no beautiful lady myself, but I did ask Cammie, who at the time was probably one of the older, more veteran women's, for some tips, and she lent me this." And he brings out this small palette of colors that would accentuate, and he's like, "You have very and lovely lips, Ruth, and you want to accentuate that. This is called a liner." And he sort of he's like, "May I?" And I think he goes through the change you make you, and there's probably a few stumbly moments because he's clearly never done makeup on himself, but it's almost like there are times when he tries to show you on himself so that you can do it, and that's clearly very difficult. He doesn't know, but there are one or two small things he does onto you that seem slightly more practiced.
Okay, but I think Ruth gets the impression that Grant actually knows what he's doing, and as this thing progresses, she becomes more open, more trusting. She was very reserved at the beginning, but as the things go forward, she smiles more and bats her eyelashes, her fake eyelashes now, and says, "Well, I've never had someone take care of me like that. Thank you, Grant. And from the bottom of my heart, I've never had somebody do something like that before."
Yeah, and it's almost Harlequin romance-esque novel, too cliche. Every when you smile, he compliments, and when you're open and you say these things, he reiterates a line that you may have seen him say before, which is you deserve this, and and these boosting in nature. He's never shy with a compliment or a hand to help. Probably I don't know how often Ruth may have been on heels, but they're still baby kitten heels. But I imagine he spent a moment or two with Ruth, helping them walk a little and providing an arm. And
I think actually Ruth has actually a good sense of balance. So she hasn't done this before very often, but it's not as long as she doesn't try to run on these, she's pretty much natural.
Yeah, I think Grant's impressed by that. I think he sort of was expecting to have to baby bird a little, and I think the fact that he doesn't makes him smile more.
Yeah.
Sound like we're hitting our end of scene?
I think
so. Exactly.
How about then as this memory comes back, as we come back into Ruth now, what do we see in that the last little moment here of our scene?
Well, I think what we see is that she squares up her shoulders, like, okay, I'm doing this, and you see that her makeup now is a lot better than 5 years ago, and that she still uses the color palette that Grant has shown her, maybe with a few new touches to it. And then for the final part of her transformation, she will get out these shoes, and they're blue as well, but they don't have baby heels. They have really long, they're not extravagantly long, but these are stiletto heels. They take skill walking in them.
Excellent.
And when she starts out walking, she's wearing a skirt. You can see the muscles of the calves, that you can see if somebody's wandering around in heels a lot. And well, yeah, it looks like Ruth does that kind of a lot, even though it's only in the evenings.
Perfect. And so I ask, sounds like you're moving. Where are you going to?
I am moving. I should have looked before I talk, but I will look now. And I am going to, I think I'm starting out at the bar because I need a drink.
All right.
We'll see where that goes.
The bar, and I believe Grant is already there, but are you going to invite Lola as a move? You know, when you move somewhere, you can invite someone. It's up to you. And then it's up, of course, to Lola if she accepts to come over.
Yeah, I think if I go there and see Lola and see her with those flowers, I will make an impressed face, like, whoa, girl, what you got there? And move over to the bar, like give her a little side nod, because I don't think she can hear me and I wouldn't shout anyway. Yeah. I mean, this is an invitation. If she wants to continue dancing, I will watch her.
So, Lola, you see Ruth going to the bar and catch her eye, and are you going to leave the dance floor and come over?
I think Lola will give Ruth like a little wave, but I think she's going to remain on the dance floor for now.
All right. Well, it's coming to your turn, I believe.
Yeah, sure thing. So yeah, I think I'm going to
staying at the dance floor.
Yeah, I'm going to stay
and
on
just
the dance floor
remind
for
our
a moment.
people watching that this is its themes are share joy, confront a fear, grace. You can always speak to Grace here. And just to give a little bit of a setting, Grace has Donna Summer playing. And people, this is a song that people, even who don't normally will come out and dance, will get out and do a little swaying. So there's probably half a dozen other people on the floor with you.
In fact, "Love to Love You, Baby" just came on my my playlist, so that's appropriate. So yeah, yeah, and I think we kind of see Lola kind of getting into the dance, and we sort of she's as I sort of said, she's a she's not like a professionally trained dancer or anything like that, but she can move, and she is obviously quite practiced at dancing, sort of in her dress and her heels. And I think she's sort of doing that kind of thing where she's not really dancing with anyone as such. She's mostly sort of dancing for herself. But I think kind of we get that
flashback or
yeah, I was gonna say no. It's not exactly a flashback. More that kind of a sort of. Oh no, maybe it is actually. I think maybe there's kind of a we kind of get a flashback to Lola back at like a school dance sort of thing, and they're kind of standing, a little awkwardly at the side of the sort of sports hall, as some
and this is Lola as a boy
playing, and this is Lola as a boy. Yeah, that's right. And they're sort of like doing that sort of thing that that many of the people here at the moment are doing, where they're sort of vaguely swaying and moving to the music, but not really making a big scene of themselves. And whilst other sort of people are out on the dance floor, and just kind of like looking sort of wistfully, and there's the sort of the kind of disco ball spinning around in the middle of the sports hall, and the lights going and all that, and then we kind of flash back to the present again, and they've just got kind of a kind of serene smile on her face as she dances.
Oh, beautiful! That's very, very nice. Thank you, David. And I will give a memory a reminder here. At some point, I'm going to start Act 2, but right now I think at least everyone's at least going to get one more round. Well, everyone, I probably will go even through Lola one more time. We'll see. But for certain, Kay, Sabine, you both will have one more go around here. And I will remind folks, I think we are kind of establishing with these flashbacks that people don't have to be like with you physically. We can have a flashback, because flashbacks could happen outside of the bar. It's the only thing that can take place outside of the bar. And I think that Dallas could also be in part of your flashback before she makes her arrival, or in this case, he makes his arrival to the bar. So, Grant, I believe it's your turn. Are you moving or staying at the bar? You are muted, my love.
I think.
Thank you. So I think that Grant does give a nod and a wave to Ruth at the bar, and does like this sort of well-known to Grace hand gesture, which is bring Ruth a drink Ruth likes, again, not atypical. Grant's offering to cover a drink. And then sort of gets up and goes towards one of the more corner tables to get a better angle from within the crowd as Lola has sashayed somewhere else so that he can see a little bit better. Okay. And I think
and to give a reminder real quick, since it's the first time we're going there, the corner tables are for intimate conversations, a shared confidence, or a difficult truth.
And I think his mind is sort of running a little with what Grace has said, as he takes the seat with his drink and sort of, leans back a little and watches as Lola sachets and goes. And I think the song turns, and it's Isn't She Lovely? And he watches, but as he watches, there's a bit of haze. Perhaps someone's maybe smoking in a corner or something, and the figure is Lola, and then it almost isn't. It's a very young Dallas, and it's Dallas moving throughout these spaces. The dances are similar, but more enthusiastic, a little more wild. The outfit a little shorter, a little more vibrant. Even though what Lola wears is very vibrant and nice. And they move, and he sips, and he just like sort of is humming to this, isn't she lovely? And someone turns this Dallas on the dance floor, and then it's a different young lady, but it's almost like in those movies where you can't see the face. It's almost slightly in shadow. And her hair is blonde, and she's definitely in her early 20s, and she's dancing, but it's jerky, and it's almost out of kilter and very out of step with how everyone else is moving within this club. And the outfit is clearly not 100% polished and put together as anything of what Lola or Dallas was wearing or whatever wear. The makeup is slightly smudged, and this figure is just transposed over where Lola moves, and Grant sort of pinches the bridge of his nose and takes a deep breath and a deep sip of his cup and looks back up, and it's Lola again, and the song has changed, and he lets out this deep sigh and sort of like mutters to himself, Grace just doesn't understand. And I think that's sort of where that scene sort of drips away.
Beautiful. That was absolutely lovely. And so, Ruth, you're at the bar already. Grace will have come over, and does she know your drink, or do you have to tell her? I mean, she certainly would know your drink. What is it?
I imagine that she knows what I drink. Yeah. What is a very girly drink in the 90s? Help me here.
Yeah, Cosmo or...
Okay, Cosmo. Then that's my drink. I am totally... I think Grace knows that I always drink this. I don't really like it, but I drink it because it looks good in my hand, right?
Sex
looks like I'm a woman. I feel that.
And she has the glassware where they're always a little bit oversized, so that your hands look smaller when you're holding them. Here you go, honey.
That's a really nice touch. Yes. Thank you, my dear. It's a really lovely night, and you can see that Ruth is watching Lola. Of course.
It is. I have to admit, there's a good crowd. When you move there, by the way, oh no, I'm sorry, you were already there. So at the moment, it's just you and Grace, and so she says this. Now you can frame the scene however you want.
I think we can feel or see or remember maybe that this is really something that is happening a lot. Like Ruth comes up, sits at the bar, watches Lola or some other vibrant dancer, but and lately it's mostly Lola, and never gets up to dance herself.
I think Grace says, sweetie, with gams like yours, you should be up dancing.
I know. No, I wouldn't. I cannot move like that.
You don't have to move like that. You just have to move like you. Dancing is just getting out there and being free, honey.
Oh, I feel I'm free enough already. This is no, really, no.
All right.
And maybe you can see in the back of Ruth's mind and kind of a shimmer, and we see a kind of an army hall where people in uniform are hanging around with their wives mostly, and there are dances. Like an army orchestra plays, and we can see Ruth and the male presenting with Linda dancing, and Linda is actually quite pretty and she loves to dance. Linda really does. So it's always like, and then one more, and let's do one more. And you see that that is probably why Ruth doesn't really want to go out there and dance, because it's something from the other part of their life.
Oh, okay. Do we pull scene?
Yeah, I think I think Ruth even says that, says to Grace, I think that's something from the other part of my life, and I don't want to go there here.
Well, honey, you do what you do. That's the whole point of the Oasis. In a desert full of terrible, you come and refresh yourself at the waters of wonderful.
Yeah, that's what this feels like.
And so we'll close scene. I'll ask, though, do you wish to move from the bar here at the end of the scene? Sabine, are you staying at the bar, or do you wish to move?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm
sorry. I didn't know if you heard me.
Yeah, I heard you. Sorry. I think Ruth was thinking about going to one of the corner tables, but they're all occupied at the moment, and so she's staying at the bar, looking at Lola. I mean, she's still dancing. That's nice.
Lovely. All right. We're at 9:30, so that means we're hitting that point where it's about time for Act 2, I think. Or at least it's coming up real quick. I'm going to ask, though, because you started us off, it would really come down in my mind to, Lola, do you think that there's something more that you'd like to see done, or do we feel like we've set this opening bit?
No, I'm good for us to move into the second act. I think we've got like some nice foundation to work from. So yeah,
excellent. So if we're heading into second act, and just to give us a little reminder of what that means, it means that Dallas is going to come in. So technically, I am interrupting your scene, Lola. So we see you spinning on the dance floor as Dallas is going to come in, and I will place my token on the board, so to speak, and I'm going to put my tokens. Let's see. I'm going to put my tokens just to the right of the questions at the bottom there, so we can see it when all of our others are when we're looking at all our others. And so I'm going to start. I think I'm definitely going to start at the front door. That seems like the right place to start for Dallas's grand entrance. But it's not Dallas, and we will come to whether any of you recognize this person here in just a moment, but it's Tony. Tony is about 5'8", so not a very tall man, but not particularly short. He is in his late 30s, but there is a prettiness to his face, and even though he's definitely presenting as male, there's still just something about kind of the way the cheeks and the jaw are that are soft. He's wearing clothes that sort of don't fit well with what's most of the Oasis, because most of the admirers will come in dressed very well. He's come in with a baseball cap. Now it's all suede, but a baseball cap. He's got a plaid shirt over the top of a collared shirt. So there's a plaid button up and then a collared shirt underneath it. And is wearing cargo pants. At a glance, it almost has this kind of college bro look, or it definitely is screaming that sort of "I'm Mr. Guy" sort of feel. And we're going to take a break here. Let's take a shorter one if everybody's okay. Let's just go till the half of the hour. So that'll be 5 minutes or so. And then we'll start off with Dallas's scene and we'll get into the second act. All right. See y'all shortly. Just checking in on you, David. You're doing good?
Yeah, not bad. Thank you. Not bad.
Excellent. Good. I'm glad that you ended up feeling better. I'm so happy you made it.
Yeah, no, same. I was looking forward to this. I was playing Good Society earlier, and I just had a splitting headache all the way through it. I managed to make it through, but I was really sort of checked out, and I was like, if I'm still feeling like this, and trying to play a game past midnight, it'll be no good. But yeah, thankfully it cleared up. So
I'm super happy. I always love playing with you. So we're going to start here, Act 2, and as the viewer, the camera, sees the door open, and in walks Tony, and his hat's kind of down a little bit, but he pushes it up just a moment and looks around. And for our viewers, because it's the first time we've been there, we're at the front door, which is flashbacks only. And what do you bring with you? What do you leave behind? And I think as he looks out across the bar and the crowd, you can kind of see that he's like maybe looking for someone, but the smoke and the lights and the dark, it maybe not really picking up, not able to see as well. And as the music hits him and he reaches up towards the hat, like kind of pull it back down, there's this transformation that you see from these kind of dull, unpleasant, well, not unpleasant, but dull and, baggy clothes to this slinky sequin skirt, about 2 inches above the knee, in red, hair, full Farrah Fawcett, blonde hair, red sequin shoes, and a clutch, and it's Dallas there. And as she's coming in, the party has started, ladies. And you see some of the older ladies at the bar kind of, and you see, some others that are, and Grace looks over. Dallas, please. People are trying to enjoy themselves in a dignified fashion. Dignified my ass. It's time to party because Dallas is about to leave town. Now, where are my gifts? Where are my glamorous bows? And where are all of my many, many admirers? Please come. And there are a few folks coming over to greet her. And we see kind of this scene shift as this is happening. And we see that there's a banner up. We'll miss you, Dallas. We'll, up on one of the banners. And she's in a different but still quite flashy dress as people are coming up and handing off little things, well, it's something for you to nibble on the plane. And, well, where are you going, Dallas? It's not important where I'm going. It's important when I get back. Don't worry, my sweets. Very soon, Dallas will return and your little dreary lives will all be wondrous again. And, we kind of see that scene flash to a more conservatively dressed Dallas with the hair, cut a little more business-like, a more business-like wig in this very antiseptic sort of doctor's office. And the doctor and she are talking, and that's what I should expect. It's like, yes, that is the process. I know it sounds somewhat more gruesome than it really is. Well, if I came very certain, this is what I wanted. But would you mind if maybe we give me tonight to think over a little bit of course, but our schedules are very tight. You really can't wait if you wish to. If we do not do this soon, you will be waiting probably several more months. I'm sure I'll be ready. Just I'll call your receptionist and set up everything tomorrow. Very good. Thank you, Miss. You can call me Dallas, sweetie. And then back to that boy with his hat pushed back down as he walks over to the bar. And that is the end of my move. It goes to you, Lola, dancing. Now, the way we get through here, Act 2, Act 2 will end once everyone has had some scene with Dallas, and once Dallas says she's leaving the Oasis. Now, that does not mean those are the only scenes we're to have. We've still got much more story that's going on that isn't, Dallas might have thought she was the center of the universe. Tony probably doesn't. And the reality is each of you have stories to tell. So frame however you want. We will get to a Dallas scene eventually, for sure. So, Lola, you're on the dance floor. Would you like to move, or are you going to stay there?
Sorry, just remember, is Ruth at the bar now? Yeah. In which case, Lola is going to come off the dance floor and go over to Ruth, and I think it's hi Ruth, and I think she does the sort of French style air kisses and. So how are you this evening? You look great.
Very good, thank you. Yeah, I've got new shoes. Look, these are really nice. I like the way the heels are actually pretty difficult, but they don't look it. I mean, I think they don't look it. Maybe I'm just fooling myself here.
No, those are gorgeous. They really suit you.
Thank you. You've lovely flowers you have.
Grant got them for me. I said this, but I've not had anyone get me flowers before. It's not. Well, it's not.
It's not something we do here, right? A lot. But Grant is good people.
Yeah, he's
always looking out for all of us, I think.
I really like him. He's a nice guy, I think.
Yeah, I think he's a decent person. So, saw you dancing. You're a really good dancer.
Thanks. I really enjoy it. It's nice to cut loose a bit and get out on the dance floor. I don't think I've seen you up there before. Do you? Do you want to? Do you like?
No, I don't think I would do too well there. It's I'd feel weird, to be honest. It's I like moving in these shoes, but not like that. Not like that. I'm afraid I'd break a heel. Pulled out on my ass.
Well, in those ones, yeah, I can see why you would worry.
And
But
then I twist my ankle, and how to explain that, huh?
yeah, I suppose.
I think since Tony is here at the bar, I think that Grace had kind of come over to get him a drink and kept that hat kind of low and ordered a beer. And that when you were mentioning Grant, you may have kind of noticed that he kind of looked over a little bit, but he's still just kind of nursing the beer at this moment.
I'm looking a bit at the beer a bit covetously because I would love to have a beer, but it's not very ladylike.
And yeah, and I think as you kind of look over, I think I'll glance over to Tony as well, and then just turn back to
Does this guy look familiar to you?
Oh, maybe. I don't know if maybe he's been in here before. I couldn't say. I don't always pay that much attention to. Have you? And I think Ruth. Lola will lower her voice a little and say, "Have you ever, like, gone out with any of the guys here before?"
Yeah, I have. As a matter of fact. And a quick question, Kay, have I been out with Grant? I would leave the decision to you.
I think
Okay.
yeah. I would preface that going out with Grant is not a quickie in a motel. When Grant does take you out, it probably ends sometimes at a hotel or motel. But there is a dinner first. There is a pickup in a car. There is the experience.
Oh.
Then I'll ask just to clarify, because we've heard what the date or the going out would be like, but Ruth, was it a sexual encounter or was it just a going out?
It was a sexual encounter, and I totally ran out. I totally bailed off afterward. I was very embarrassed. I mean, I was not unresponsive. I liked it, but I was very scared of myself at that point.
Yeah. Nice. And I don't think Grant ever judged you for it. In fact, I think Grant never brought up the bedroom part ever again. I think he may have mentioned the date, may have come up or something like that, but they never shamed you. They never, in any way, shape, or form. And they did invite you out. They may have invited you out again at other times, but they never made an implication that had to be a thing.
Okay, so let's pull back to you answered yes. Yes, I have.
Okay, yeah, I have.
Yeah, I don't know if I think maybe I'd like to do that maybe, but I've not, I already have, I'm sort of seeing someone at the minute and I don't know.
I mean, I'm sort of in a relationship, so It's complicated. This is complicated.
Yeah, it's certainly that.
I mean, it's an experience, and I wouldn't say that I regret it, but it just added more complicated to my life.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, well, but I mean, if you're young and maybe your life isn't quite as fixed up as mine is. Maybe you want to try stuff out more.
Yeah, I think it might be nice, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, my life was on the rails from the time I was a teenager, but yours doesn't have to be.
Thanks, Ruth. That's thanks for being honest with me.
Does that feel like our scene?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, there is clearly somebody, if Grant is watching, clearly there is this moment where Ruth was thinking of saying something more, but doesn't.
All right. Lola, I believe you moved to get to the bar, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
All right. So we go to Grant. Would you like to stay in the corner table, or are you going to move?
So I think that so can a monologue, just to double check, can a monologue have a flashback element to it?
Absolutely. The only place it wouldn't is where it's monologue only spot. Is that your place you wanted to go?
Kind of.
Well, actually, I don't see why it wouldn't. A monologue is still going to, as long as you're bringing in the element of kind of the, I think we should have you, as a monologue, there should be some element of you projecting, communicating something. So if that if that can fit with flashback, I think we could go with that.
Yeah. So I think Grant had been watching Lola dance and had a few more moments of this sort of flashing between these different caricatures, and it sort of ended as they watched Lola walk away. And it was, they didn't necessarily see Lola, they saw this young blonde. And watching them dance is almost this pantomime, as if they're guessing from an amalgamation of memories what this individual would look like if they were to dance in such a place. And again, he sort of downs the rest of his drink and leaves the glass there and gets up to go and follow where Lola has gone to the bar, perhaps intending to ask Lola if they'd actually want to dance together. But as he goes, he stops and he sees his reflection in the mirror. And at that same moment, someone else has taken his seat at that corner table and knocked that glass over. And the sound of the shattering sort of sparks off in Grant's mind. And as he connects also while looking at the visage in this mirror, and it changes. And it's a much younger Grant. It's a Grant perhaps at 15 years old. And he sort of can't help himself but run a finger over the reflection of this person. This moment of himself as he sort of breathes in deeply towards that, thinking of those jerky moments and the sound of shattering glass. And there's this scene where there is a young Grant standing in a doorway. And there is a man that looks very much like Grant looks like right now, in his 40s, maybe early 50s, who is standing over a figure on their knees, who is dressed, and it's clearly that faceless figure. And there is a glass on the floor near them, and there's a cut and a bleeding cheek. And Grant just peeks behind this door and watches as this man that looks so much like him yells these profanity, sissy boy, what are you, just discriminatory yelling, screaming, like, you will not do this shameful thing in my house. And it's an 18 or 19-year-old, just like a young person. And their eyes meet Grant's, and there's dots of makeup there. And Grant looks away. And Grant runs back into the room. And there are more sounds of crashing and breaking. And then I think, if I may say this, I think, you hear Grace's voice like, you broke another glass. And he's pulled out of it. And he looks back at this mirror and his reflection, and it's that young Grant. And then there's him as he is now, and he reaches a hand out and covers his own face in this mirror and shakes his head and just repeats, "It's not like that," and walks back towards, and goes to finish a movement towards the bar.
Lovely. So you're walking to the bar.
If that's okay.
That's perfect.
Yeah,
I can live with that. Ruth, you're at the bar currently. Do you wish to stay there or do you wish to move? And I think right now we've got pretty much. Actually, what I think I'm going to do, Grant, if you don't mind, is you're coming out just so we don't have everybody.
Yeah, I don't think Grant's there yet. I think he's at the interrupt, like he's walking up to the bar.
So you're coming out of the powder room, coming out of that bathroom where that area where the mirror is.
Yeah.
So we'll count it as kind of like in that area.
Yeah, it's like the liminal halfway space until it's my turn.
Right. So Ruth, what are you doing?
Okay. I actually would stay at the bar, but move out of my seat when I see Grant coming, and just vacate my seat so that he can sit with Lola. Because, as much as I would like to take Lola and have whatever, that's not realistic. It's not. So I'm moving out. And while I'm making space for Grant, I will look at this strangely familiar newcomer, because I think I know him, and well, yeah, maybe he's new or something, and I'll walk over and say, "Excuse me, have we met before?"
And Tony looks up at you and, "Hi, Ruthie."
Oh my God! Oh my!
It's nice to see you.
Wow, you nice cap.
Yeah. How are you?
Honestly, shocked a bit. Like, I mean, I don't mean to be too personal, but it's unexpected.
Yeah, I guess so. I chickened out, Ruthie.
Oh, wow. Well,
I got there, and I'd already gone through all the counseling. A year and 3 months, and then I got to the hospital, and I was scared, Ruth.
well, okay. I wish I could say something wise and clever to that, but I'm still kind of flummoxed. You always seem so brave. But I guess we've all got our breaking points, don't we?
It just, there's so much involved, and then when I got scared, and I just kind of just kind of wandered a little bit, and the hormones ran out, and then there was the mood swings, and once that had passed, it was, well, I just didn't know if I could go through it all again, and I'm sorry I disappointed you, Ruth.
I'm not. Oh, I'm just hugging. I'm just hugging them because I'm basically. Also, I don't want them to see my face because I'm crying.
And I think Tony kind of stiffens a moment and then just like folds into you. And you're in heels. I think you're probably fairly tall anyway.
Yeah, I am.
And so just kind of falls onto your chest and is crying.
Yeah.
Does that feel like the scene?
Yeah, that feels like the scene.
All right. We go over to me, don't we? No, we go over to Lola because no, it is to me because I interrupted Lola. I kind of pull back from Ruth, and I look up at your face, and your mascara's gonna run. Don't cry for me. I love your shoes.
Yeah, well, that's yeah, they're pretty fabulous shoes, aren't they?
They sure are. I gotta talk to somebody.
Yeah,
I'll catch you before I go.
Yeah.
And I'm going to move towards Grant over there.
And Ruth will order something. Ruth will order a whiskey neat now. No girly drink.
Something
No
strong.
girly drink now.
So walking over there, kind of catching Grant having had this moment, and you'll see this, smaller but not super small man coming towards you, and you see that. I'm like fumbling in my pocket, and as I get close, I pull out a envelope, really packed full. Grant, can I talk to you?
And I think Grant looks up at a moment, and I think Grant has maybe mentored some of the younger admirers before. Like, hey, no, that's not how you treat a lady. And so at first there's this moment where they look up and they're like, oh, of course. Did you need advice? And he stops for a moment as he says that and takes a step closer. And there's this elation, almost a wash of relief. And then there's immediately followed by this deep look of sadness. And there's a glaze to Grant's eyes, and
I kind of flinch from that look.
And you flinch, and he makes this almost soft, like shushing noise, this comforting sound, and a slightly trembling hand reaches out and cups this individual's cheek, because Grant does not know how masculine Dallas refers to himself, and he can't help but run his thumb over the shape of Dallas' eyes that he knows, and the curvature of a cheek and a bottom lip, and it's all these parts, but they're not right. And he swallows, and he has this moment where he has trouble looking into their eyes, and he sees in the corner of his eyes someone else in flannel, and it's again very similar to that young figure that he'd seen in his past, again in a flannel, and there's a shift of a flannel, and there's a letter. There's moments in time and it's clear, and then there's a letter, and then there's a sob, And then there's nothing. And he looks back and he sees this individual's face, and he's like...
And I think I lean into the touch for a few moments before I kind of pull away.
And he almost tries to chase it. Grant tries to chase that cheek, that connection, and then his hand sort of curls together, and he has to wrench it back to himself. And Dallas, what did you do?
Tony. It's Tony, and I owe you this. Here.
And he takes it and looks at it a little confused.
It's as you kind of open it, or the flag, it's not sealed.
Yeah.
And inside is cash. And it's not like it's certainly not all hundreds. It's, a whole different denominations. I'm sorry. I should have gotten it back to you sooner.
Tony. And it's like he's swallowing glass when he speaks it. I could care less about this. And I think he like absentmindedly places it on the bar, like not even really paying attention. What happened? This isn't... Why?
I went to the hospital like we talked about, and
best doctor in Berlin.
Best doctor in Berlin. And it wasn't for me. It wasn't. I'm sorry. I thought that that's what I wanted to do. Once I got there and I thought about it and the permanence of it, I don't think you realize how certain you have to be. I think you see people how you want them.
That's not true. I don't see them as how... And he like shakes his head a little, and there's that niggling voice of Grace in his head, and he tries to eschew it. That's not true. And he like reaches out again, almost this time to push back the baseball cap.
And Tony will kind of pull it back, but kind of, not allowing that
touch, yeah.
That touch.
I didn't see what I wanted to see. I saw who you really are. Dallas.
Tony.
It's Tony. And like, again, as he says it, it's like he's cursing. It's vile on his tongue. You know this is not... I've told you about Olivia. I don't want to read another letter.
She was forced to do something she didn't want to. She was kept from something she wanted. You say you saw who I wanted to be, and you're telling me who I want to be.
You look sad. You look small. You're vivacious. You're bright. You dance until midnight. You... then some.
Do you understand? I'm nearly 40. I go
you
through
don't look
this.
A day over 30. And he smiles. It's a very quirk, charming.
Transitioning is not easy, and time is not kind. if I made that decision and when I'm 50, when I'm 60, I look in the mirror and that's not who I want to be, I can't go back.
But you can't go forward hiding in this garb. Just because you're scared of the future doesn't mean you should shelter in the past.
You were always so kind to me. You always helped me. I loved being with you.
I loved being with you. I loved the experiences you had. And I think there's like this flash of moments, and there's dinners, and there's flowers, and there's dancing, and there's almost like, like a bottle of champagne in a hotel room with gown and a mock prom, and there's all these little moments. There's chocolates, there's gifts, there's extravagant jewelry, but also small things, picnics, and just like a flower.
I hope you know that I'm still a story being written. But I have to decide to do it myself. You helped me so much, and your help made me want it more. And our times we shared together were wonderful.
He's just nodding. And I think he reaches out a hand, and instead of going for Tony's face, it goes for Tony's hand. And there's this interlocking of fingers and this squeeze. Your story is beautiful. Don't ever let it get cut short. If it's Tony, then let Tony be long. Let Tony be the Iliad. But you will always have my number, be it Tony or Dallas. Never be afraid to use it.
And I just fall to an embrace, if you allow it.
Yeah, and Grant just clutches you. But it's almost it's weirdly strong held, but it's also like he's scared to touch you, like you're brittle and you may break.
And Grant, stop looking for the past in other people's faces. Start finding the future in them.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Pull back and kind of smile, and of course you don't. Sound like scene?
I think so.
All right. So Lola, currently worth noting, a scene has been had with Dallas by Grant and Ruth. That does not put pressure on what you do, Lola. I assure you, we will get there. What would you like to do?
Yeah, I think I think I'm going to I think I'm going to move over to the what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, I'm going to move over to the corner table and I would like to invite Tony to join me.
Okay.
And I figure this is maybe slightly, a short time later in the evening so kind of once rumors have started to spread, as it were.
Okay. So yeah, I think that seeing you go over there and maybe there's a moment where we have eye contact and I'll follow. Lola, honey.
You look so different. It's strange.
Yeah. I'd say dashingly handsome, but
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what made you decide to come here like this?
well, I owed someone something and I had to pay that back, and maybe it's because I missed people I loved. You were always the brightest flower in the garden, and maybe I miss seeing you.
I mean, you still could. I mean, will you be coming here often, do you think?
I don't know. I'll kind of reach out and go to kind of touch your hand. Do you let me?
Yeah, I think so.
I thought I was going to be strong coming here. It took a while before I could do it. I've been back in New York a couple of months now, but I was afraid, and I had never let fear be anything in my life. And then one day it became everything.
I always saw that strength in you. And I mean, not that I don't now. I mean, this must have been hard in its own way, I suppose. But it's just I always had such a strong image of you, and you always seem to have one of yourself as well, and it's just odd seeing how you've changed. Not it's not a bad thing, I suppose. It's just strange.
I'm having trouble seeing myself anymore. How have you been?
Good. It's life is what it is. But it's coming here's meant a lot to me. It's always good.
You look beautiful.
So do you. I mean, it's I mean, like I said, it was a shock, but you still look like you, I guess, just different.
Don't let my decisions be yours. And I'm gonna kind of play on something here, David, and if you don't want it, then we'll curtail it off. But
Sure.
You talked to me about when I left that maybe you'd want to go. You still feel that way?
I don't know. I'm still not sure what I want. I mean, I still have, my life back home, and I don't know if I want to turn my back on that, or
You've got to be certain. I had to be certain, and I wasn't.
yeah, I think I can see that it's a big decision to make, and I don't know if I don't know what I want still. I'm kind of seeing someone.
Really?
It's nothing serious, but and she doesn't know about this.
Yeah.
But I also, it's nice to have men looking at me,
I do know. Listen to your heart. That's what I did, and I can't say that I've heard the answer completely yet. I heard enough of the answer that I had to stop then. But stopping then doesn't mean never. But once you say yes, that's forever.
Well, maybe until you do make a decision, maybe you can take me up on the dance floor.
I would love to. And I'll hold out a hand as I stand up.
Yeah, and I'll sort of very over exaggeratedly sort of daintily hold out my hand and
sound like scene?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Now we've all had a scene here, and we have. I'm gonna hit this to give us information, and then I'm gonna check in with folks. Once everyone has had a scene with Dallas, Dallas can choose to say she's leaving, but he's leaving the Oasis. In that case, we go to the epilogue, which takes turns briefly narrating a scene for your character after this night. And it has some things about, does anybody go home with each other? What happens after they met Dallas? Has things changed with them? That sort of things. So I want to check in with folks because I'm not entirely sure all of our stories are as resolved maybe as folks might want. So we can go and kind of do a kind of knowing this is we're heading towards the end. If you have something you want, we can do it. If you don't, then maybe just give one little blurb of something, just a momentary statement of what you're doing there in the night, or a snippet to someone. But we're over to you, Grant. Would you care to have would you like to move somewhere, or would you like to just have a little snippet?
Is it okay if I take a moment more to think?
Certainly. Yeah, I think we can do that. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Sabine, so I will ask if you would like to go ahead and go right now, or yeah, you feel good about it?
I could have a little scene, I guess, but I'd be ready to move into Epilogue as well. But if I'm having a little scene, I think I'm still at the bar, and I'm staying there, and would be with Grace. And it would be while I'm nursing my whiskey. I mean, I'm not throwing it down, I'm just looking at it very pensively. And then I will tell her, I always have heard that I was a brave person from my other life, right? That was brave. I have this. I don't know how much you know about me, but I've done some stuff that people pretty much thought that was kind of brave. Yeah, hard to explain that, but I feel I've been chickening out all my life. No, like I'm.
What do you mean, sweetie?
Everything I've done is just. I followed what other people thought would be right for me. Did what my parents thought was right for me. Did what my commanding officer thought was right for me. My comrades thought was right for me. My sweetheart thought was right for me. And I did all that. I thought it would make me happy. But I always knew that wasn't what they were seeing, wasn't really me.
Well.
And I never said anything.
It's not for me to tell anybody how to live their life, honey, because, I've made so many mistakes. This old mug is filled with the cracks of mistakes. But I'll say this. If you're not happy, then you need to think what will make you happy. That way you can make your decisions.
I'm thinking I'm trying to talk myself up here to being truly brave.
Well, I know you've got it in.
That's when I throw down the whiskey.
And she says, I know you've got it in you, sweetie. And old Gracie's always got your back.
Good to know somebody has. Thank you.
We'll pull scene. Grant, do you feel up for a scene?
I think so.
All right.
Yeah, I think I figured out. I think somewhat similarly, Grant is rather jarred from this whole interaction with Tony, and still makes their way to the bar, and orders a stiff drink as well. Yeah, probably a very high-end whiskey. And I think he sits himself into the seat, and he's usually, when he sits, again, he's always very composed, like he's playing the perfect man. And he actually like hunches in the seat a little and scrubs a hand over his face as he takes a sip, and he looks at Grace. How do you know?
How do you know what, sweet?
If you're just going through the motions, or if you mean it. And his eyes sort of drift over to Lola.
Honey, only you can know that, but you gotta open your heart. You gotta open your heart, and you gotta accept what it says. You want to be everybody's sweetheart.
I just want them to be happy.
The way to make someone happy is to share happiness together. You know, no one's ever really happy when someone they love is miserable.
It was never miserable. It was fulfilling, joyful, but he like heaves a bit of a sigh, and he takes the drink and takes another deep sip. I think I'm ready for something more, though.
I think something more would do you a world of good.
And I think he nods his head a little, and he downs the rest of his drink and walks over to the dance floor with every intention of interrupting Tony and Lola.
Excellent. And I'll come to you then, David. Do you feel like that wraps us up, or do you have something here that you think you'd like with Lola? And of course, we have the.
I'm kind of happy to leave things there.
I agree. I think
and just see what we're getting.
Yeah, I think that seems like a really nice moment there. Oh, excuse me. So we're in our epilogues, and we're going to go around and for your epilogue, you can. It's going to be after tonight. That's the one thing that is stated straightforward. It could be tomorrow morning, or it could be a week or a month. Well, I don't want to actually hamstring. You could project as far forward as you'd like. I mean, heck, if it's a funeral at 80 years from now, that's fine. What the hell? But it is that opportunity to kind of show a last feel and a little bit of a resolution for that character. But I think, like most good stories, it's always nice when there's still something to be told. It's always nice to have a little leave them wanting more. But frame it however you would like. And let's see, since it was your scene next, Lola, you willing to go first for your epilogue?
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, I think we kind of just get a shot on the train back out to the suburbs, so in the early morning, and Lola's looking tired, but composed as she's sort of heading back home, and I think we just see sort of a young man who looks to be doing something very, very similar, at least in terms of getting back home after a night out. Who just sort of gets onto the thing at like the next stop, and smiles and sits down next to her, and they just start chatting as the train sort of rolls on out.
Oh, lovely. All right. Moves to Grant. Grant,
Yeah.
your epilogue.
I think it's the night after. Another night at the Oasis. And I think there had been this dance, and David, feel free to interrupt if you don't like this at all. And they'd had maybe a few more drinks than regular, and he dances with Lola, and he still pays his compliments, but his focus is a lot more attuned than it's ever really been. And they end up going to a motel, and I think it sort of flashes through that, but it's very unplanned, and it's very seat of the moment, which is the antithesis of anything Grant's ever done. If Grant ever goes out with anyone, it's always, I'll pick a date, I'll pick a time, there's dinner, there's roses, and it's almost it's messy, and it's romperous, and it's just this next morning where Grant gets out of the bed and is wearing this robe and is looking at the form of Lola laying in the bed, looking at a room service menu and just smiling.
Lovely. Very nice. And Ruth, what is our epilogue for Ruth?
Yeah, this is the next morning as well. Ruth is back at home, presenting his mail. No wig, no makeup, wearing just a army t-shirt. And then we see the kids run around, and Linda runs around like the usual morning madness. And then at one point the kids are gone, and Linda is maybe picking up the dishes or something. And that's when Ruth puts down the newspaper she was hiding behind, kind of, and pulls back the chair a little and says, looks at the wife and at Linda and says, "Linda, darling, I think we have to talk about something." And then the camera pans out. You can see that Ruth is still wearing the blue heels from last night.
Lovely. Absolutely beautiful. And I think for Dallas's epilogue, we see the bar of that night as Dallas opens the door to leave and kind of look over, Tony looking over his shoulder back at everyone, people he loves. As he steps out, the door closes, and then we get the door immediately opening again. But as it pulls back, it's a different night. You could tell it's a different night. There's a crowd. You look over at the bar. There's Grace. Maybe a few more wrinkles on Grace. And we have that kind of pan shot from the floor of a shapely leg with sparkly shoes, and it moves up to a very sparkly dress, and then it moves up to a young lady, hair done in kind of that mid-90s kind of do, and she comes in and looks around and kind of leans back out the door and says, "It's hopping. Come on, Mama, get your ass in here." And we see coming in an older and more conservatively dressed lady. But there's no doubt it's Dallas. She says, "Shut up, I'm coming, and a lady must always make an entrance." And I think that's where we'll end. Well, that was Midnight at the Oasis. I hope you enjoyed it. I will once again tell anyone out there, Catherine Brahman writes beautiful games. really does, and is a really phenomenal person. I love Kat to death. I urge anyone watching, go and find some of her games. They are really spectacular. It is well worth diving into. It's a game book that even if you don't get it to the table, you feel like you've had a rewarding experience just reading it. And then when you get to the table, oh my gracious! Oh, so we are at 10:35. I wouldn't mind having a little feedback. The game actually suggests a little chance to kind of have a decompression and a chance to discuss, because I think that we discovered this is an emotional game. This is a game that'll really kind of grab a hold of you. So why don't we take 5 minutes here so we can kind of breathe, maybe, shake it out, and then we'll come back and just do, I don't know, 10, 15, see, we won't go terribly long, but we'll do a little, I think I'll actually have a dreams, of stars and wishes on this one, because I think that wishes we can put in here would be sort of things that, maybe you wished you'd had a chance to see more of, or maybe looking at the game, things you might wish that, because I think it has replayability that would be interesting to see. And of course, if you don't have any of those, that's fine too. And then we'll have our stars, which is things about the game, things about what we did in the session, things about your fellow players that you enjoyed. So let's take, like I say, well, let's do 4 or 5 minutes. We'll come back about 20 till the hour. Alrighty? And folks at home, I've been touting the wonders of Catherine Brahman's games, but I suppose I should tell you where you can find them, and that's at Aviatrix Games. That's Kat's. That's her company. What she publishes also off of. I know that she has Red Carnations. Is that Kickstarter still going on? Here, let me look and see if the Kickstarter's still happening. A game, Red Carnations on a Black Grave. And I don't know, it's listing that it's still on Kickstarter. I'm not sure if that's up to date, but an unbelievably interesting concept of a game there, having to do with the Paris Commune in 1871. Absolutely fascinating when I was reading about it. I love a history game anyway. Lots and lots of deep feels in this one. And since I happen to be over here on Aviatrix Games, there's also Rovers that Kat has done, which is a hack of World of Dungeons. So go and take a look. Aviatrix Games, really awesome.
Yeah. I will say I just clicked the link and it looks like the Kickstarter is over, but you can pre-order from it.
Excellent. And love backing really artistic designers, indie designers. Woo woo! Yay for indie designers.
Yeah, I'm actually going to put that out there. There is a new indie game similar to what you just mentioned at Aviatrix, Red Carnations on a Black Grave. It's about resistance, coming out probably sometime this week, if I recall correctly, called Ace Adventures by Brian Liberage. And it is a sort of, has some time traveling, and it's about, fighting the establishment, and really about sort of like power and theory about their openness. And it's really fun. Brian LaBrage is a queer gamer and designer for games, runner for games, and that should be out probably, I want to say, on sometime the week of the 19th or the 26th.
Awesome. Yep. Support indie designers. Those are that's where all the innovation is happening. So let's do a little stars and wishes here. I have been going pretty much from David first all this time before. So why don't we have Sabine? Why don't you get the start out first? So let's hear if you have any wishes, and let's just do them together. Let's hear if you have any wishes, and then give us some stars.
Wishes. Yeah, I don't know, because on one hand, I really wish I had more scenes with everybody, but on the other hand, I feel this was perfect as a little glimpse into the lives of these peoples at a rather dramatic point. So I'm not sure that I really have all those many wishes left. Maybe I wish my neighbors were less noisy, but that is not under anybody's control.
I did not hear them.
So
No,
I'm muting myself usually, and they weren't that noisy really, but they're noisy outside right now. So
all right, and some stars maybe.
Oh, stars! Yes, I get to do stars as well. I love this game. I love the characters. I love everything about it. It was very intense emotionally. I mean, I nearly lost it when I was hugging Dallas. That was very emotional for that. And at the beginning, I wasn't so sure if I could connect with a trans woman, because that's very much outside of my personal experience in a way. But in another way, it was actually not that far away. So yeah, it was a thing, and I loved the way Grant was so thoughtful and kind and lovely. And I also love the fact that there were these cracks and why and the motivation why he was doing that, and why he was without him being creepy or a bad person or anything. I liked that very much, because that was a really good characterization of a person who likes to hang around these marginalized people. And Lola, I absolutely love what you were bringing to her, the energy in her dancing. Yeah, that was something. And Tyler Dallas, oh my gosh, what can I say?
Thank
I'm
you.
speechless, which is probably rare for me, and also also a good thing. And the whole other people that you play, they were all very much on point. Thank you for the experience.
Thank you very, very much. Grant, played by Kay. Kay, any wishes and then some stars?
Yeah. I think I don't have any like wishes in a sense for the way the game folded out. I think it was really beautiful. I think it touched on everyone's poignant issues without making them rushed. It was just like enough of a tease. But in that tease, I think that with wishes, like I have just these more scenes in my head that I want to see. Like this idea of it's that tantalizing, like, well, what happened, between when Tony left and then came back as Mama Dallas, and then where did Lola and Grant end up, and how did the conversation go with Ruth and Linda? And so I think that's also a really just a sign of a good game, that it has me, like we mentioned before, I'm thirsting for more. Like I want to know. I'm invested in such a short amount of time, and I think again that sort of speaks to the breadth of touch people had on these topics. I think similarly to Sabine, I was a little nervous. This is not a community I inhabited. I'm gonna out my age here. I was born in 1995, so this is also a community that I don't have a scope of sense from, even as an outsider, just around during those times they were going on. I grew up very differently, and so it was done very invitingly, and you had it set in a way that it was very approachable, and that was like fantastic. Also, your accent work made me like, just the doctor in Berlin, I was like, that's delightful. And then there was something about the sweetness that I think was in Ruth. Like I could clear like that she clearly loved her wife and was having these reconciliations of how to deal with that, and just that the lineup of the shoes and the dancing was only for Linda because that was what Linda enjoyed. It was just heartwarming and touching about someone trying to express themselves. It was lovely. And then Lola was just vivacious, and she was so warming, and it was very fun for me as the Grant character to try and play through that emotionally, as I think this is an individual that I am attracted to, but also, Grant has this baggage, and how that sort of functioned within each other was really played off very well. And I think their mutual insecurities shared with other characters sort of just brought this lovely unity into their situation, whatever may come of it.
Beautiful. Thank you very, very much. Lola, played by David. David, some wishes and stars.
Yeah, I think my wishes are very, very much in line with what other people have said so far. There's I feel like there's a lot more that we could have touched on and could have seen and could have delved deeper onto, but I really like what we did have. And also I feel sometimes if you get too down into the weeds of trying to type every loose end, you end up kind of sucking a bit of the life out of it. So I think I think what we did was great, and I wouldn't want. I thought I was happy with where we were. But yeah, those kind of like what else could we have done? Would have been it's. And this is actually, I suppose, an unusual one in some ways, because it's not usually the one I go for. But say it's a shame. It's obviously a shame that Brandon couldn't join us. But I also think it would have been really nice to have just like that, like one extra person in the scenes would have been really nice. Usually, like kind of for these sort of games, like I always think like 4 is about the sweet spot. But I really think that just having that 5th person in would have just added a bit more, like what's the word I'm looking for? Different combinations of people for scenes and different experiences and stuff. But it's it was great playing with the 4 of us. But yeah, that's possibly I think it might have been interesting. In terms of stars, yeah. Sort of, I guess the more pragmatic ones first. Just say, Kay, is lovely to meet you, lovely to play with you for the first time. And Tyler, thanks for the actual, facilitating of the session there, setting it up and all that. It was really good, and for sort of introducing it and everything. So thank you for that. In terms of like the sort of session itself, just everyone really sort of brought a lot of sensitivity and a lot of life to the characters. That was brilliant. I really liked the take on Grant, because I think it is it would be very easy to play the character as a creep. And even like in that first scene, I was a bit like, oh, is it going to be not obviously not something that you not that I was worried by what you would do as a player, but like I was sort of getting that like initial vibes of like, oh, is he going to turn out to be a bit of a creep? But then just sort of when we got more of that view on him, that was great. So it was a really nice sort of reveal, I think, there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that was something I think was very I really thought about. I think, again, this is a character, and I think it's even mentioned there, like, I did not want to play some creepy fetishist. And so I wanted to take a moment and think poignantly about, like, what kind of would shape a person in this time and era and put them here. Yeah. So,
absolutely. Yeah. That was a really nice portrayal. Ruth felt like such a very sort of real character, very the sort of the struggles that they sort of faced, but like that combination of both the struggles but also the joy in their expression was I thought you did a really good job of capturing that, Sabine. So that was great. I really loved Ruth, and again, I thought with I mean, like playing Grace, I really loved Grace as a character. I really loved that sort of Mama Bear thing going on. Was excellent. But and also as Dallas, and again bring just real sensitivity and real interesting nuances to the character and to the situation they're in. I thought you really portrayed that nicely. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I'll do mine. In Line of Wishes, I do think it's a terrible shame that Brandon couldn't play with us. I know he really wanted to, and tech issues took him away from us. So we missed you, and I agree that I think it does sing a little better with one more person, and I think one more person is its sweet spot. But, and this isn't exactly a wish, but more of an observation. Part of the neatness is there were characters we didn't bring in, and they really do change up a lot of what the tone can be. I believe it's Marianne, who is this much older, very conservative, both politically and socially. That viewpoint is very interesting and does some strange things to the story. All of this, having these different vibes that can come off of people, it makes it a game that gets replayable. So I would have liked, a wish is I wish Brandon had been with us, and I would have loved to have seen another character in, and we really did miss you, Brandon. Other wish, and again, this is a more bittersweet wish. I do think that it is important when having us read the game, and basically we read the game to our viewers just straight out. There were very few things we skipped. But I think that brings us into the moment. I think it really helped us, even if we read it to ourselves, kind of hearing it and hearing other people going through it. I think it brings you into the moment, but it does front load. It does take some time. We probably could have gotten some more scenes in or whatever. So I'm not going to say I wish we hadn't have done it, but I will say that once people are familiar, or had we not been, this first time and it going up online, I think we probably could have hit some hot spots on it in the read down, still gotten our feel, and been able to go a little quicker. But I don't regret having done it. Stars. I have been touting Cat all the way through, and I think it is a sign of really good design. That something that there are very few people, not just us, but very few people who know this culture, and yet you are brought really into it. It really makes a hit. It really grabs hold. I have every time when it's been played, it is emotional. And it gives you a viewpoint that isn't you, and yet you find a way to connect, and it seems these characters become real to you, and that's really a lot of fun. So a huge star for that. Okay, I'm going to echo everybody else that I think that your portrayal there, again, it can go that character can go a little icky, or can be played kind of playboyish in a way that either gets caricature or gets where it's so focused on one person that it doesn't have much to mention. Instead, we saw Grant as someone who was a part of this whole community. Everyone had an association with Grant, and Grant was a good person. And then as you doled out the backstory, it just more and more feels, more and more. And it really was nice. And I loved where we got to with Grant. I'm happy with we know they had this moment together. We don't know what's going to happen, so we can kind of hope. And I think that's a nice feel. David, I thought Lola was charming. I thought that she had a touch of the innocence that none of the rest of us did. So it was something that gave a viewpoint to what the place was that didn't have all the baggage that everybody else was bringing into it. And that was so needed. And you did it with such energy, and it was so inviting that, I think everyone who watches, anyone who would have this story up there to see, is going to love Lola. They're going to be like, this is just this sweet, wonderful person who deserves good things. And, it's hard to make a likable character. And she was just phenomenal. And, you always have such a delicate touch. And it was lovely to watch. Sabine, boy, that story for Ruth is something. That when you came in with the beginning on it, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be deep, and you did it in a way that was really respectful and was empathetic to the situation of that person, and was relatable. It was just a beautiful portrayal of someone who had been hiding, and to have it resolve as I'm not going to hide anymore that's just, that's great stuff. So, God, y'all are just amazing.
Yeah, but you set that up. You totally set that up with Dallas admitting that she was afraid, and that was kind of leaned into what Ruth was experiencing with her whole life.
Yeah. Thank you.
That was just giving Ruth the push she kind of needed.
Well, I'm glad that worked. I loved all of our scenes with Dallas together. There's something cool about Dallas not coming into the second act, because it means that you don't have her commit to anything in the early development. So it makes it easier to come in and get involved and can say some things in the story that work. And so that was really cool. The only thing in any of it that makes me, and I'm not going to, I know this is off of a star or not starring exactly, I can't help myself but kind of want a happy ending. And I'm always a little worried about like having her walk back in that transition. Now, we have in our story description that this that Dallas would find her way back into her knowing her transness. But I always feel it's a little cheesy to have that moment, but I just can't help myself. So I hope it still landed.
I think it did.
Totally landed.
I think we have
It wasn't.
Sorry, go for it.
Yeah, I wasn't. It didn't feel cheesy. It just felt right at that point in the story that we would have. We had these more open endings for the three Grant and Ruth and Lola. That all these stories could have gone dark if at any point, but then we had the ending with Dallas having a happy end, and that makes me more optimistic for the others, to be honest. So, and ending it on a high note, that I feel it. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think we have enough media out there, bury your gaze and things like that. That if we have one game where it always has a happy ending, I'm more than happy with that. I think, yeah.
Cool. Well, good. And so, folks, thank you all for playing, and folks at home, I hope you enjoyed it.